Welcome back to the Angry Man Podcast with Jason and Greg. And boy, my guy, Coach Kenny Ellis is dropping some heat. Now, Coach Kenny Ellis, who is certainly a friend of the show, he's been on the show a couple of times. And also, of course, I've been to their gym once. Hopefully I'll be back there again in Q1. But he was on Marco Boxing, Jay, and he talked a little bit about who's next for Gervonta Davis, who he would like for him to see in terms of a fight next for Gervonta Davis, or at least in the near future. Now, he talked about Shakur Stevenson, and Shakur Stevenson is the fight that he would like to see in the very near future for Gervonta Davis. He's basically saying that Shakur Stevenson and Gervonta Davis are the two last men standing at 135. As you guys all know, back in the day, we had the four kings: Gervonta Davis, Teofimo Lopez, Ryan Garcia, and Devin Haney were the four kings, and now most of those guys are gone. But then Shakur Stevenson moved up from 130 pounds, and I kind of said it was like five kings around that time. But, Shakur wasn't in the division. And now Shakur and Gervonta Davis are the two last men standing. And that was very interesting to see that, because they're not avoiding Shakur Stevenson. They're not avoiding that conversation. As a matter of fact, that's what Coach Kenny is actually looking forward to, right? Looking forward to seeing Tank in the ring against Shakur Stevenson and seeing that matchup. Now, one thing that was asked in regards to Shakur Stevenson and Gervonta Davis was this: how would that fight somewhat play out, right? So would it be a difficult fight, right? Or who would be the most difficult fight at 35? He also asked about who would be the most difficult fight at 40. And when he asked him about 35, he said, of course, it's Shakur Stevenson. He's not saying that the fight is going to necessarily be, quote unquote, difficult, but Shakur skills, he would be a challenge. That would be a competitive fight at 135 pounds. And then Marco asked him about 40. And he said, well, who's at 40? He talked about Teofimo Lopez, saying that Teofimo would not necessarily give him problems, but it would be the most competitive fight because of his athleticism. And he said, then what about Devin, though? And I said, I'm ready to hear this. So here's what he had to say about Devin, guys. I'm gonna play this really short clip.
Against who?
Against Regis.
Case closed. Devin, I can't say. I see something where he don't present a threat at all. The fight will be easy.
Woo! He don't present a threat at all. The fight would be easy. Now, he talked about the lack of pop as it relates to Devin Haney, and that would be something that, at 140, he doesn't necessarily present. He said that fight is possible if he could make 140 pounds, but they don't foresee Tank moving up to 140 pounds anytime soon, because he still has unfinished business at 135. So it's interesting. Essentially, what he's saying is that Shakur Stevenson, give us Shakur, because that's the bigger challenge. Devin Haney is not a big challenge. Jay, now I'm going to ask you this, because I know a lot of people in the comment section are going to be saying this. Oh, that's cap. They just don't want to fight Dev. But, dude, how can you say they don't want to fight Dev when, in fact, they're talking about, or at least Coach Kenny, who's a part of that team, is talking about, he would prefer Shakur in the very near future. And yes. I think that would be an interesting fight. Jay, what are your thoughts on what he had to say in regards to Devin Haney and Shakur Stevenson?
I mean, I like it. I mean, I like the fact that, he's pushing for Shakur, because honestly, Devin has a better resume and has more accomplishments, but I still think, despite his last fight with Ghost, I think Shakur is a better fighter. I think he's the better fighter between him and Devin. And for them to say, for Coach Kenny to be like, we want the toughest of them all, with Shakur, we want him. That's telling you a lot what their mindset is at. Now, if it's going to happen, we'll see. He also talked about, some fighters pricing themselves out. Now, to Shakur's defense, Shakur has already stated that he understands he's the B side. He understands Tank is the A side. What does that mean, though? He also said, I understand that, but the deal has to make sense. So, he used that caveat saying that, well, I ain't just saying gonna take nothing, which I understand, but Coach Kenny was talking about, look, if the most you've ever made was $4 million and I'm offering you $8 million, you should take that money and bet on yourself. Because then you win, you can control all the pieces on the chessboard. That's what I've been saying about a lot of fighters. Essentially, that's what Devin did when he went over to fight Kambosos twice and fought Loma. That's what he did. He took the shitty end of the stick and got it. And handle the business, and now he's calling the shots for the most part against anybody else, not named Tank, But it was very funny when Coach Kenny, Mark was like, well, Devin did good. He's like, against who? Regis? Next question.
Case closed.
Case closed. So it's just like that they see Shakur as the biggest threat, and he wants that threat. So he's not running away from the smoke. They're saying Tank's team and Coach Kenny saying that they want the smoke. Now, Coach Calvin was worried about one thing he mentioned on a prior interview, that he was worried about fighting Shakur and the fact that the way the judges are, based off of the fight with Ryan, how Tank dropped Ryan and Tank still didn't win that round. Coach Kenny is like, it's going to be a good fight with Kerr, but it's not going to go to the judges. So he ain't worried about it. So even though they think he thinks Shakur Stevenson is the toughest of them all, he still thinks Tank handles business and doesn't go the distance. So I'm hoping that comes into fruition. I think also if Shakur had a better showing against Ghost, aka Edwin De Los Santos, I think it would have been a lot easier to go around with it now. But now Shakur's not going to get the biggest deal. If he thinks he can beat Tank, and they send him an offer, it's more than what he made before, quite sure it will be, he should really take that deal. He says he can beat Tank, he thinks he can beat him, and any fighter should be thinking that way, think they can beat anybody. And I love to see that fight, and I love the fact that Coach Kenny is like, we want the smoke. Devin, just not that dude, according to Coach Kenny.
Man, that was interesting, man, just to hear him say that. Which would suggest that the rehydration clause would not even be of a concern, just based off of the fact that Devin and he feels. I'm not going to say that Devin doesn't have any power, because clearly he had some. He was able to drop Regis Prograis, and I don't classify Regis as someone who doesn't have much of a chin. That's not who I think Regis Prograis is. So I think it's interesting for sure what they're talking about, but he's really he's going in, dude. He's going in when he says that he doesn't believe that Devin would be the easiest one at 140 pounds because of the lack of power and probably things that they see that they don't necessarily want to disclose. Devin looked great in his last fight, and I'm not knocking Devin. He looked amazing in his last fight for sure. But he also struggled with Lomachenko as well. So I think you're as good as your last fight, but we need to see what Devin looks like in his next fight too. And I think the jury is still a lot in terms of what a Gervonta Davis versus Devin Haney fight would look like. But I want to see Devin again at 140 pounds, and we'll see what he looks like. Jay, anything else you want to talk about? Yeah. Or do you want to move to the next one?
Coach Kenny also mentioned Matias too at 140. He said that would be a fun fight, but he's like, Matias, the IQ is not on the same level as Tank, and he's there to be hit. So it'll be a fun fight while it lasts. And that's the issue with Matias. He's a tough ass fighter, but he's there to be hit.
Yep, that makes sense. You guys tell us what you think in the comment section in regards to what Coach Cal had to say. Don't forget to hate, like, comment, and subscribe. This is the Angry Man Podcast and Sports Media, and we are out.